Hello, human.
Hey, how goes it?
Not exhausted. Who knew recording in the middle of the day would, improve that?
I'll take the little edge off, huh? Go figure. How you be?
Uh, Good. Survived the New York trip.
What
Got
was up with New? Was it business or pleasure or
so
both?
it's business.
Okay.
So is a conference on Tuesday, so I had to fly out Monday, fly back Wednesday. I think it went really well, and I didn't make a fool of myself, which is always important.
I didn't think
Um,
you would anyway, man.
no.
Are you so in real life? Are you like you are with us, or do you have the same kind of personality palette? Are you personable? You joke around? You talk to everybody? Are you social, or
So
are
if
you?
I've got a topic opener,
Yeah.
yes, right. If I like, so geez, I was at a family party last Saturday,
Mhm.
right? Baby shower, and like I feel awkward talking to a lot of my family in a big
Oh,
environment where it's just like, oh, I gotta walk into this little circle and like make a hello. Like that bit, I'm horrible at.
okay.
But like if it's a smaller setup, it's one on one. Hey,
Mhm.
so and so, what's up? Blah blah blah. I do fine. And certainly, if I got like a topic, I'm there to pitch the academy and
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
about Fastly. Like I did fucking fine. I didn't have any worries. I was so surprisingly relaxed.
Okay.
Like I wouldn't say laid back,
Mhm.
right? Like I'm on the ball as it were, but
Yeah, yeah.
it it was a surprisingly chill thing. Like I could say, in my element as it were. So I didn't feel any anxiety.
Nice, nice. Like I said, I'm kind of hmm, think about introvert by nature, but then if I'm with my boys or like you said, if it's something a topic that I really dig or whatnot, then I'm good. But sometimes I find myself trying to figure out, especially with adult males, it's almost kind of like I don't necessarily watch sports and all that kind of stuff. It's interesting. Like
Mm,
my end would be different. So the stuff that would be a normal end is not my end, and so usually the people who are grown who like geek stuff, I know who they are already, and it could be like a slew of topics or whatever. Or if I know they like
right.
music or movies and stuff, and I find that's not a lot of people's priority, which is fair, and I understand. Grown man collectibles and cartoons may not be your thing. That's fine. But if I do find out that's what's up, then it's on. But that whole thing, like, how was that game last week, or are you keeping up with blah blah blah?
Oof.
It's just not my story to tell.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes I kind of wish that when I was younger, I would just go with the opener of like, what is the one thing you can talk about for 3 hours straight?
Yeah, yeah,
Right? Just
yeah,
like, and just
yeah.
like give them the excuse to just like blather on about whatever super thing they're excited about. And maybe it's tangentially related to something you can talk about, or you
Right.
can just go off of their energy,
Hmm.
whatever. But like, it's tough sometimes. It's like, hey, how's the weather?
Right. Right. And guys aren't necessarily the most talkative unless, like I said, unless it's something they're passionate about. And it's about finding out what that is and if that matches what you match. Because guys, like it's kind of stay in a cut. But you say one thing that kind of like football or baseball or comic books or the movies, then you just light up. But otherwise, it'd be like the guy just kind of like, just kind of following the misses around or letting the kids drag them around, and you just kind of a non player. you just you just there going through the motions, but you wake up once you have that flame that just kind of lights you and be like, oh yeah, this that or that this.
Right?
It's always interesting. If you're good to go, we could do the count off.
Love to do it.
All right, five, four, three, two. Hey, it's Jay. I'm back again for another one, and today I have with me.
Ryan, the idiot who can't tell the difference between fives and Captain Rex. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Just to let you know, don't nitpick yourself. Let's don't do it.
I was kicking myself so hard like the day after we recorded the last episode, and I was like, oh wait, that was Rex. And then I listened back and I was like,
Yeah.
oh god, I specifically said it wasn't
No, so
Rex.
the way we do things is kind of like, even though we might have like little notes or whatever, just like bullet points or whatever, it's still off the cuff. We are adding our actual thoughts. We're having actual conversations. You're not just telling me stuff. I'm just telling you stuff. We're kind of going back and forth off conversation, and sometimes stuff be backwards in your head, and you might say something, you're thinking about something, but they know you mean. And so, like, any conversation that you record and hear back on accident, you'd be like, did I say it like that? But everybody knew what you were talking about. That's just how conversations and language goes. Some of the stuff is like in context, and you got to forgive that, like you could have one kid, or you'd be calling your lady and you trying to grab for names even though you know the person, and you might say babe or hey you kid or whatever even though you know who they are. That's just how that goes.
I think the diehard Clone Wars community might disagree with that on
I
my
know.
mistake in particular, but
But sometimes with the geek stuff, it's funny. Everybody looking for you to fall into that pothole as if that negates everything you know or said before, and it's crazy. Like things shouldn't be set up on tripwires like that. But yes, they are. But you know,
we'll survive. We'll survive.
we'll survive. Like a lightsaber beam through the chest. You mean I could have lived? I could have survived that? Okay, let me be good. Let me be good. Here's a chart of where it went and where my bladder is. Okay. All right. So before, this is another situation where two adjoining episodes kind of line up together perfectly and kind of saying the whole breadth of the situation of the story. So we're doing episode 6, or part 6, Far Far Away, and we're doing also part 7, which is Dreams and Madness.
Yes.
Yes.
Apparently Dave Filoni had some fun with the naming of part 6, Far Far Away.
Yes.
Because I think it was when they did the Obi-Wan show and they were doing the big celebration at the time, and people were already asking, where's Thrawn, and he's like, oh, somewhere far, far away. And so like it was dropping the most subtlest of subtle hints of like where Thrawn was, because at that point they were already like writing and filming it, so
Yeah.
he already knew. He's like, when Thrawn shows up, I'm gonna call it Far Far Away.
And they also leaned into that because with last we saw our Ahsoka, they were in a ship inside of a well, going through hyperspace, and so part 6 starts off with them
cruising down the street in my
space well. And it's a moment of meta, or a meta moment, where they're talking about stories and the history of the galaxy, part 1, 2, and 3. And then Ahsoka mentions like 1 being the best part, of course. And so I thought that was kind of a wink to that story.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
yeah, which I thought was really cool and goes along with the Far Far Away as well.
Yeah, it was interesting too, because you get that bit where she's, doing some sort of lightsaber form or kata, and there's holo recordings of Anakin.
Right.
And she clarifies like he left like 20 of them, as if somehow he knew that he wouldn't be around to finish her training, or just like, hey, I might die, you never know. And even outside of like the specifics of what he say, which at this point I forget, but something pleasant, but it just shows a different side of Anakin, that his level of care and investment in Ahsoka was at that level that he would leave recordings for her, right? And maybe this was in that time where she'd been kicked out of the order, blah 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 blah, but it just adds another layer to who Anakin Skywalker is. So,
as well as clean up and a possible backdoor for any potential stuff that might come up later that they want to do after the fact.
oh, you mean try and bring Hayden Christian back for more? Yeah.
No, that was their ace in the hole that I don't think anybody, expected. It's interesting.
I've been seeing people being like, dude, after episode 5, like, why don't you just do more live action Clone Wars? And I was like,
right. It's been done. It's been done. But
it's like, again, you got to find more you got to find more space in the page that you haven't sketched in yet. And
yes.
like, all right, maybe.
Yeah. But I guess with shows like this and lore like this, especially with Star Wars, there's all a moment and then sweep. And so it's a lot of jumping around. So there's a lot of stuff unsaid. They just kind of get to the part that you need to know. So right. there's a lot of middle that we never see on a lot of these situations. So they could possibly do something with that. But like I said, because most stuff you'll see all the parts, but like I said, they'll go in there to make a monologue and then cut to the next scene, and that was it. But you knew something happened before they walked in and made the monologue, and you knew something happened after they left.
Yeah, and
not saying that they need to do it or should. I'm just saying there's space in between.
Yeah, there's space in between. It's just finding the right thing to put in it.
Sure. And so we also find out, and Ahsoka comes clean with saying that when she was using the Force on the object to find out what was going on, when she was looking for like the echoes, that she noticed that Sabine, went willingly with the enemy.
Right.
And I thought it was interesting, and I thought it was kind of cool that it could have been taken two ways or even more. But she could have been pissed off and mad, and you caused this and caused that. But she almost did a thing where, like with the Matrix, where this whole thing about, is it destiny or is it choice? Or is it a combination of the two? So she went that route of like, she's probably just destined to make that move for this to kind of happen, for this to happen. So I thought that was interesting.
I'm trying to see if I'm misremembering now, but it didn't seem like she was not only not angry at Sabine, but a little bit of like, maybe some of that was my fault, right? Mm-hmm. Where like, maybe I shouldn't have put her in this position in the first place. Not as a, I don't trust her, but I didn't prepare her properly, right?
It felt like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Where it's like me as her mentor was focusing, like we talked about, like making her a soldier instead of actually providing what Sabine needs, whatever that might be. But
I agree. So Ahsoka and Hu Yang, they're heading for, is it how do you pronounce it? It's it's not Parida. It's Peridea.
Yeah, that's how it's spelled. I have no idea.
Okay. Which we find out from Balin that it's like pretty much a graveyard for the whales. Like that's where they go to migrate and where they end up. Which I thought was pretty interesting.
That was some cool world building. I like that.
Yeah. And then it also gave more merit to them just hopping into a well and not knowing where they're going to go. It's almost saying like this is the pathway, and everybody would get off on that same stop because it's really the last stop. So that's very interesting too. So it kind of fixes the whole, because I was kind of questioning how you just going to jump into a space wheel darting off and you're assuming that's the end result, So this kind of,
well, they still were assuming, but it makes not the Ahsoka making some sort of rational decision where instead she's trusting the Force and trusting what she's sort of feeling through the Purgle, but from a why would the Purgle go there?
Right, exactly.
It's like, oh, okay, now we get it. It's not just some random thing. It's like that's their cemetery.
Right. But she was using the Force and faith to lead her and guide her hand, basically. So you got both sides. So you got Balin, and you also have Ahsoka. They're all heading that way. Once Balin and everybody kind of get there, they meet up with the Great Mothers, which is interesting to see them. But that almost takes it into a whole different kind of vibe, almost kind of like Dune in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so they're doing a lot here in episode 6. So first off, the Night Sisters, right? The Dathomirian witches. They, in continuity, have almost been wiped out. So in Clone Wars, I think it was Dooku, but it might also have been Darth Sidious. But essentially, during the Clone Wars, one side or the other comes and wipes them out. because they're kind of involved in Dooku's apprentice at the start is like Asajj Ventress, and she's Death Amorian. It's complicated, but they basically come in and get wiped out. Now there's an exception to that when they get into Jedi Fallen Order. Main character goes to Dathomir at some point, and he runs into like the last Night Sister, and they manage not to kill each other and eventually become allies and eventually become friends, blah blah blah. So there's still a Night Sister or so, in continuity running around. But this is a brilliant way of bringing back the Night Sisters, and like, oh yeah, there's a whole other contingent of them in this other galaxy. And so while it seems like they're reduced to just the 3 mothers, right, their little coven, it seems like Thrawn has this agreement with them of like, if you find a way to get us back, right, if you find a way to have someone come from the main galaxy with a hyperdrive and we get my ship back, I will take, I'm guessing, a whole bunch of dead Night Sisters that they can reanimate back to the main galaxy, because it's all that cargo that look like coffins, and it's just like, okay, we've already set up they can reanimate people, and that set up in Clone Wars before anyway.
I didn't realize
so that's my guess is what the bargain is, and why Thrawn has to take 3 days to load all the cargo. It's not his cargo, it's their cargo. That's the agreement that they've come to as they try to get the fuck out of this galaxy. That does not seem pleasant.
So, like, the troops that he has there, did they get sucked in when he got sucked in?
Yeah, pretty much his whole Star Destroyer got pulled. Like, a couple of the Purgle grappled the Star Destroyer, and one of them actually reached their tentacle inside the command bridge and grabbed Thrawn, but then they just dragged the whole Star Destroyer into hyperspace and presumably to this location. The other weird connection, so there's this giant plinth tower that they're on, and we get to see the exterior of it at some point, and there's all this, glyph writing on the outside of it.
Yeah.
So another Jedi Fallen Order tie-in is that the big plot in sort of Jedi Fallen Order is that the main character goes to this out-of-the-way planet, and he finds this recording from a Jedi Master, basically an archaeologist, and he apparently has a codex of like all the younglings. And so the idea is that Cal, the main character, if he can find the codex, which this guy is hidden, he can go around the galaxy and scoop up all the younglings that weren't at the temple, right? The next generation of Jedi. But the location, Zufo, there's an ancient civilization that was there, like 25,000 years before the Zufo, and some of them were Force users. And there was like the 3 sages, and one of them was a dark side sage, and he had his tomb on Dathomir, presumed home of the Night Sisters. But you actually look now at this other planet that they're on, and that tower temple has Zufo glyphs all over it. So the connection between the Zufo and the Dathomir go apparently way the fuck back. And so it's not just the Purgle, it's not just the Night Sisters that apparently came from this other galaxy, but the Zufo might have been the technological bridge that brought them back and forth outside of the Purgle. So that was like the moving the Night Sister corpses. I picked that up in the episode itself, but like the glyphs, the Zufo glyphs and stuff, that was like days later I saw someone online being like, it's Zufo glyphs, and I was like, oh shit, it totally fucking is. So they're doing a lot of stuff and not necessarily calling all of it out. So there's other layers of like world building going on there. And geez, I'm trying to remember, like, I don't remember the very next scene, but we get to Thrawn finally.
Yeah, so right before that, we have a much needed moment with some kind of insight to his moves that he's making. So far, we seldom got any clear information about Balin's intent. And so do have a moment with him and Shin, and he's saying like this was the land of dreams and madness, and that was children's stories that came to life. And Shin was like, I don't know those stories. He was like, it's before your time, and you know, and he was talking about
she wasn't part of the Jedi
Order.
Exactly,
and he was kind of training her outside of that, you know, almost probably giving her the ideal situation that he would want for the Jedis as well. But he does mention the history of the Jedi and the fall of the Jedi and the rise of the Empire and the repeat of it and all that kind of stuff. And
cycle of growth and destruction, growth and destruction, growth and destruction.
Right.
Light and dark.
And Shin is asking, you know, does that mean like it's our turn now? You know, shouldn't we be in power now then? And what is powerful, and I thought was pretty clean and unexpected, Balin was kind of like, I just want to bring the cycle to an end.
Oh, buddy, you got depression. Oh.
You know, he want to bring it to an end. So I thought that was very, like I said, I thought it was very insightful and just more insight on where he's going with it.
I was thinking about like Balin earlier. And like you're not the only one. I've seen lots of people be like, "Oh man, this Balin character is so great. He's so cool." Like all this sort of stuff. And I agree. Like his presence, his demeanor, like it's all generally positive things. It's just whatever his goal is, right? And what he's necessarily willing to do is like, oh, outside of that, yeah, great, interesting character, right? Mm-hmm. But like he's got some huge grief that is motivating him. And I'd say a flavor of grief that's not broken, right? Like grief can break you down where you're not able to function. Mm-hmm. But I feel like this is a sort of like a functional depression where the loss of what, like the dream of what the Order was, the ideal of what the Order was,
versus
and its failure, right? The reality, right? Even pre it being destroyed, it's sort of corruption under influence of, you know, Palpatine and what he was doing with the Republic and the war and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. That's part of that denigration, and so like that's the sadness, and the only thing that takes that from I am a person that has gone through tragedy to a villain is like, well, I'm sad and things are bad, so I'm going to end it for everyone. It's like, oh, God.
And he's always kind of hinted at and said his disappointment, but him to be like, you know, I love the idea of it, because Shin was kind of asking about it, and he was kind of like, yeah, I love the idea of what it was supposed to be. But you know what? That's almost the disenchantment of a lot of things that you learn more about it, even from your parents. Or maybe, or maybe being in the military, things that you see, you're so close to it that you saw too much, and you really see how it's made, and it's not based off of honor or duty or the betterment of this or betterment for that. It's a lot of times it's selfish, and the end result is almost like a byproduct, and that explains why it's not really, the duty's never happening, the war's never won, the person's never, you know, better from going to this to get fixed, or, you know, it's always a patch-up job. It's always, the rhetoric is this clear, precise, but the results are shabby at best. And it's like, why is that? It's because the true intentions is not what's being said. But it shows in the actions the real result of what's really happening behind the scenes.
It's not the propaganda they signed up for.
Right.
It doesn't actually deliver on the propaganda. Whether or not the people, and it becomes tricky because there's sometimes, you know, organizations where the people at the top genuinely believe the propaganda, right? And they fail to execute.
But like so a lot of times that could be because even though they believe it, that's not moving their motives. Yeah, that's like, you know, like government and everything else. You know, people are supposed to be there representing people. But that doesn't necessarily, you know, when lobbyists comes in, that might sway them to pay attention to that versus the people who put them there. And so it's just
the compromises.
Exactly. So in your head, you tell yourself whatever you want to tell yourself to let you sleep at night. But the end results and the, you know, of your actions show that something is not jiving. You know, because a lot of times, if your head is saying go left, you move left, unless there's something really there to stop you from completing that movement. If you're going right, it's because something came over to throw you off your original path.
Right. Well, if you want original path, then Thrawn doing his little deal with the Night Sisters is a good example of lobbyists,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So him, from a pragmatic approach, is just like, well, this doesn't conflict with my goals. We both win-win. So I will take your dead corpses that you'll probably reanimate back to the main universe, and we need, as established, 3 days to do it.
Yeah.
So that sets up the countdown clock.
Yes, it does. I thought it was interesting too, with some of the insight that the sisters kind of brought, where it was kind of off, and it's like, how come you didn't see that part? And so it kind of gives you an idea of limitations and also power set as well, which I thought was kind of cool. For those who don't know, who just watching the show, then it's kind of like, okay, this is what we're kind of dealing with. So it's not an exact science, but it kind of, you know, expectations are also, you know.
Yeah, it lays out the power set by what it can and can't do.
Right.
Maybe not perfectly, but I also it makes it very clear the reason Morgan Elsbeth, got the name right this time, knew where to even start looking for Thrawn was because the mothers were sending her dreams, right, pointing her in the right direction. And it's like, that's how you get around this intergalactic gap, is through dreams. So that was very clever. I like that. It totally works in continuity.
It was reinforced later by Ahsoka force dialing
Sabine.
Oh,
we're gonna get to that, because I have other problems, not with that happening, but we'll get to that this next episode.
Okay, so on this episode also we get introduced to Captain.
Are you talking the Stormtrooper captain? Or
what's his name?
Enoch.
Is it Enoch? Okay. Oh, no, okay, so what's the deal with him with the, you know, the gold-plated face and all that? What was this deal?
So I have no fucking clue.
Okay.
The only thing that I know is that
just for sure he's Thrawn's number one.
Oh, he's definitely Thrawn's number one, but he also is an entirely new character. So he has not been. He's not been set up before. He's not referenced in the books, as far as I know.
And you didn't see him before he got sucked through the portal?
No, I don't think he was set up at all in the Rebels episodes.
Okay.
He is played by, I forgot his last name, Wes something. He was on the Expanse TV show. He was phenomenal. He's a great actor. Hopefully we get more than a voice. The only thing that I've seen that's not just like 10th level rabbit hole conspiracy is for Romans, and I don't know if this is specifically for like their generals or centurions, but they would have like gold-plated funeral masks.
Oh, okay.
Right? Even the emperors would have funeral masks, right? That were like reproductions of their faces.
Oh.
So that might be an allusion to them maybe being dead, but like I don't think in the 2 episodes that we saw where a couple of these stormtroopers were down, we didn't see the same sort of like like giving off the ghost as they die,
the green smoke, you know,
right, the green smoke. So it might just be like an aesthetic of showing just how much they've endured and had to adapt, and how many things they've had to, like, even you look at his Star Destroyer, like there's massive patches of this gold material, right? Like for sections that have been destroyed. They have had a rough time of it. Yes. I like that Thrawn in his dress uniform, you can see there's even a patch up on his chest where like the fabric is very frayed, right? It's small, it's not discolored or anything, but it's like they are scraping by. They are effectively someone who's been like left in the boonies behind enemy lines forever and have been scraping by on their own.
Could you tell about how long they were there for? I'm assuming it's a while, because when certain things kind of came up, when you see like, you know, like facial hair or whatever, and the reactions of people, you could tell like, okay, last time I saw you, you didn't look like this. But I was just kind of wondering, and like you said, the past job, I guess, of the ship, I guess. So do you? Because they never really said exactly how long.
So it really depends on sort of like where we are after sort of like Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Because Rebels finished up before the start of the original trilogy. So before A New Hope, right? It's before all of that. And that's like 6 years long war, something like that, 5 years long war. And then we have whatever time jump to now, so like a decade at the very least, right? Ezra was like maybe in his late teens when that happened, so like Thrawn's probably got to be getting close to 50 or something like that. He's had a long career. Like he was middle-aged, I think, when he like enlisted in the Empire, like I think early in the Clone Wars, because again, as alluded to, he knew Anakin Skywalker. He fought with him, alongside him, right? So they've been there a while. I'd easily put like a decade. Probably not 2, but a decade, I'd say.
That would explain like the the understanding of a language and stuff that comes up later on.
Oh yeah.
So that's okay. That makes sense then. It's interesting. The actor they got playing Thrawn, Lars Mikkelsen, Mads Mikkelsen's brother.
Right.
They got an interesting look, and I like it that he has almost an alien type look. It doesn't. It kind of reminds me of Lieutenant Data in a way. That kind of.
Yeah.
But kind of blue. But he has an interesting. I like when they have actors that look different, and it kind of lends to the otherworldly kind of look, or just a different kind of presence.
Yeah, I mean they've done some slight tweaks, right? Even when they did him in Rebels, they kind of tweaked the way his eyes had looked, because that was the first time he showed up in like television or film media. Before that it was books. So you had like written descriptions and some book covers, and his eyes, like most of the Chiss, like the entire eye was red. There wasn't really like a pupil or an iris or anything like that. But this tweak totally works, right?
Yeah, they give him a Gambit special.
Right, because you need to be able to see where he's looking. You need a pupil, you need an iris, all those sorts of things, right? And they just, made it black with red. Like, okay, cool. Forehead, it's Star Trek foreheads where like he has more bit of a protrusion, and it's subtly there, very subtly there, because like why get in the way of the performance? Exactly. So yeah,
I think he's great.
There was people being pissy about his pants, and it's like, dude, that's like he's got the I forget what they're called, but the loose pants. That's a total thing from history. Yeah. So other people would be like, he's got dad bod because like he's got a little bit of a paunch, and it's like, oh my god, Jesus Christ, guys, like the character's fucking 50, like, Thrawn at his core is there for his intelligence, right?
Yes, and that's displayed nicely.
Now, they also in Rebels did have him like being physically competent and would be able to handle himself in a fight.
Okay.
But it's like he's in his fucking 50s. Like, let it go, guys.
Right.
Like if you've got complaints about how Thrawn is being portrayed, then we'll talk about how he's using his brilliance or not, because I got some fucking notes. Because I think what happens next is like, they bring Sabine out, and it's like, well, oh, you again. They do the whole, oh, you again thing, and it's like, all right, we're gonna let you go, and she's like, what? You can let me? I'm like, yeah, I don't care about you. Like, go ahead, get lost. Like, you're just trouble waiting to happen.
Because the first thing she asks is about, asks about Ezra, and
he's like, not here.
Right.
And not here.
And I kind of like to, his thing, like, well, sold out your people for no reason. You could cause the end of everything for somebody who may not be alive. And she was just casually like, well, if you're alive, then I'm pretty sure he's fine.
Right. Like, you didn't manage to kill him all those other times. You didn't.
Right. So let's don't downplay him too much.
Right. I mean, he does give sort of the proper gravity to, like, you straight up threatened the galaxy with bringing me back.
Yes.
A little bit of ego there.
Yes.
Just for one.
Yes.
Person.
That could potentially be dead.
Right, could be dead. She's like, yeah, fuck yeah, I did. It's like, all right, commitment, good. And then he's like, we're just gonna let you go. You go ahead and find your buddy, whatever. We're gonna be out of here by the time you get back anyway.
Yeah, we honor Balin's promise.
Yep. Honor Balin's promise. And I like also that, like, Thrawn is like, General Balin. Like, I know you. Like, are we gonna have problems? And he's like, former Jedi. And he's like, okay, former Jedi, General Balin. Okay. And it's like, we shouldn't necessarily trust him implicitly, and just lay that out there. Right?
I like how he inspects all the pieces that's on the board. I appreciate that because so many times, a higher up kind of blows that kind of thing off with ego or just don't notice what's going on, the pieces that are in the room.
Oh, fucking notices everything.
So I like, and he calls everybody out on their stuff, like the witches. He called them all not quite. Hey, you didn't mention the extra visitor. You didn't extra, and then calling out her like, hey, you didn't tell me you were bringing him. Do you know he's the ex-Jedi? Like, if you don't know, I'm letting you know now, and I love it, and it's so he
even calls out Morgan Elsbeth on like not mentioning Ahsoka Tano. And he was like, wait a minute, Ahsoka Tano? And he's like, I know exactly who the fuck that is. Like, she's involved in this?
Potentially? Yeah. I want every whole dossier. Right. Give me everything.
Everything. I know who she used to fucking run with. Like, give me all the updates. Yeah. And it's like that sort of stuff is Thrawn, right? Where he's like, give me everything, because understanding the psyche of my opponent, right? His whole thing is he's supposed to be able to sort of look at the culture of a society and then the officers within it and be like, okay, their shortcomings are going to be this. They're going to make these types of moves, blah, 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 right?
Right.
Such a fascinating way to like do your sort of character insight stuff. So then he's just like, all right, well, you can just leave. Here's a platypus wolfhound.
Right. It was many things.
That was interesting.
Like a giant rat or something.
It's clearly trained, and it's not the only one that we run into, but the stormtroopers managed to train it. And here's one of the first bits where I was like, he's not brawny enough, or he's not making like the real smart moves. Like, he didn't put any fucking tracking device on her. Because as much as he's like, yeah, the Jedi are gonna follow her, it's like, dude, the Jedi make mistakes. Like, put a fucking tracking device on the animal in like the riding pouch or something, because then you can follow Sabine, which then also sets up Sabine later going like, hey, wait a minute, this is fucking Thrawn, why did he let me go? Oh, I've seen this play before. They put a tracking device and she finds the tracking device and gets rid of it, right? And then you've got both people being smart, where it's like, yeah, I'm totally letting you go because I've got a tracking device on you. And everyone being like, I should be fucking suspicious of the person, get rid of it. Right?
Because even though we found out later, I was almost assuming that he already knew where Ezra was and kind of already had tabs on him, but just wasn't saying anything to her.
It definitely seems like he does not.
But later on, they have to radio letting them know, hey, we found them. That's when I knew, like, oh, he didn't know. But he also did, no sooner than he let her go, was like telling Balin, like, y'all go find her and go kill her. Right.
Especially since it's also like, and get off my ship.
Right.
He doesn't say that, but it's like it also gets these potentially dangerous Jedi off my ship, even though they're not Jedi, right? Former Jedi. So it gets pieces off his table.
And you hear that he's going to leave all of them. He's going to leave Balin. He'll leave Shin.
Why bring them?
Ezra.
There's no advantage to bringing any of them.
Leave them all. And also, if they would have caught him bringing in the cargo, that would have been another like thorn in the situation, because they could have saw something or came across something. He needed them as far away as possible, not putting their hand in the pot.
So he's like, I don't need you poking your head around where it should go.
Give everybody some busy work. You go find a dead person potentially. You go chase a person that we could have just shot and got rid of right here. You have intentions for leaving Sabine there, and you're not being clear in saying what it is. But okay, we'll go with your vague reason that I don't necessarily believe, and we can use her, because he asked Balin, like, what is she doing here? Basically, he's like, oh, I think there's need for it. And even though everybody looking in the room like that doesn't make any sense, Thrawn was like, yes, we do need her. We need her to keep you busy, so we get rid of you too. This will make it easier than me having to go and try to kill you too. So let's give everybody a little assignment and let you go run off, and you go run off chasing the runoff.
And I wish they kind of made, if they had made that part explicit, because I don't remember Thrawn specifically saying like, and now we've gotten rid of Balin and Shin.
No, he didn't do it. He didn't say it. I kind of took it as that after he sent,
because like there's us reading between the lines, and that might be there and it may not be,
right?
But I mean, I'd like a more favorable interpretation of Thrawn, especially what happens next episode. But they go off, and Sabine goes, and of course the wasteland is not empty. And another thing for the Zufo, like there's all those statues, those large sort of plinth statues, and it's like, oh, those look like Zufo statues, right? So like this is definitely a planet that they were on at some point, but increasingly it's like this planet has been devastated, right?
Mhm.
We find out that there's something bad here, either on this planet or this galaxy potentially.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, Sabine goes gallivanting along with her platypus wolf and eventually comes under attack by some locals, fends them off.
Right. And it's interesting because Balin did mention the thing about the planet, because Shin was like, you know, everybody's trying to get off the planet. Like, why are you interested in staying here?
Like, there's something here.
Right. And he's like, well, maybe they're afraid of the power. Like, maybe they're afraid of the power. You know, that kind of thing.
You know, with the Night Sister mothers sending dreams to Morgan, something else might have been whispering to Balin from one galaxy to the other.
Exactly. Yeah, he could be catching the same.
Because he's been chasing power the whole time, so he also knew his path led here, right? Otherwise, he wouldn't have been teaming up with Morgan in the first place.
When he was talking to Shin, he mentioned something when they were talking about the Jedi and stuff, and the truth of him, and the idea he loved, the truth he wasn't so smitten with, and the weakness of them. And he mentioned that the Boken Jedi trained Ezra.
Oh, so that basically just means like not directly trained, like at the temple.
Because he mentioned the fall of the temple. He did mention the fall of the temple, and it's kind of like trained him in the wild. So I didn't know if Boken was a clan, or was it a type?
It's generally like anyone that doesn't have like the proper formal training.
So Sabine is a Boken.
Yeah, Sabine would be considered a Boken.
Okay.
Right. So if they haven't gone through the trials, right? They've got a mentor that, you know, got kicked out of the order, or their mentor themselves didn't pass their trials, right? So it's just like a lower class of informal Jedi.
That's interesting that they have that. I guess I like that level, and they do that because that's the same thing they do with the Mandalorians too. Like there's levels, ones that remove the helmets, they got like fractions of the different like religion and stuff. So that's interesting that that's touched on.
Right, because like, you know, what is the fallacy? All proper Scotsmen. Well, basically it's this thing where it's like, well, we're real men, you're not real men. We're real Americans, you're not a real American. It's like, motherfucker, I'm a citizen, yeah, but you don't act like a real American. I'm gonna define a narrow characterization of whatever my group is that excludes you from it.
Exactly. That you could not possibly be a part of.
Right.
That's and then we have that moment too where the Great Mother's warn of others coming, and it could be Ahsoka possibly. And it's funny that Thrawn automatically goes to that. Like, could it be her? You know, that shows real concern, because, you know, if so, I want to, you know, pretty much prepare for her to come, to the point where if he's like, if you see a star whale, destroy it with extreme prejudice. Like, even if you see a whale entering the sky, take it out.
And take it out. There's a minefield set up. Thrawn does not underestimate Jedi at all, and certainly not Ahsoka, right? Yeah. So I appreciate that it's not the arrogant adversary.
Right.
It's not Moff Gideon just like, I'm gonna fucking pwn all you Mandalorians. I took your homeworld. Like, there's no way I can fall.
Right.
Like, Thrawn believes that he can fail, and so thus he takes steps to mitigate.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, and that's pretty much how the end of episode 6 went.